Brazilian executive Carlos Ghosn held 4 chairmanships and was the CEO of 2 of the world's largest car makers. According to investigators hired by Nissan, this concentration of power paved the way for his alleged financial abuses.
It's clear there are issues requiring improvement with respect to Nissan's governance because it could not prevent the misconduct.
The audit of Nissan started in January. It came in the wake of Ghosn's ouster over allegations he lied about his income and transferred personal losses to the company. The committee has recommended that independent directors hold the majority of Nissan's board seats. It says one of those independent directors should be the chairman, whose main role will be presiding over board meetings. It also called for abolishing a separate post known as company chairman, a key executive position that Ghosn used to hold. But the makeup of Nissan's board could change significantly in the coming months, and for a different reason. It's reportedly in talks to merge with its French partner, Renault. If the deal is finalized, the combined industry giant is expected to make a bid to buy rival Fiat Chrysler. It makes Alfa Romeos, Maseratis, Jeeps, and Ram trucks. The French government, Renault's biggest shareholder, declined to comment on a possible merger.
The absolute priority for the French state is the Renault-Nissan alliance. The decisions that have been taken and announced during this month should allow us to focus on making that alliance work.
Last year, the Renault-Nissan-Mitsubishi alliance sold more than 10 million cars around the world, just short of industry leader Volkswagen. Bringing Fiat Chrysler into the fold would make Ghosn's former empire the clear global leader. And that would shine an even brighter spotlight on governance and accountability. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
Well, let's get more on the story now with Elena Casas in Paris. Hi, Elena. Some damning findings against Carlos Ghosn, who was also head of the French car maker Renault at the time. How might these findings impact his upcoming trial in Tokyo?
Well, this report will make very difficult reading for his lawyers. As you say there, it does allege that apartments were bought in Rio and in Beirut for the exclusive use of Carlos Ghosn with the company's money, that his family members took private jet flights with the company's money for their own personal uses, for their own personal travel. And all of this, of course, plays directly into the charges which are being brought against him in Tokyo, that he used the company's money for his own enrichment and that he used it to cover his own personal losses. So, of course, he's not facing any criminal charges here in France, and he's now, of course, out of prison on bail in Tokyo and awaiting trial. But certainly this will make very uncomfortable reading for Ghosn and his lawyers.
Meanwhile, there are reports that Renault is preparing to move ahead with its merger talks with Nissan ahead of quite an audacious attempt to purchase Fiat Chrysler. What more do we know about those reports?
Well, none of this is a new idea. The idea of a full-blown merger between Renault and Nissan has been on the cards. It's been discussed ever since Renault first bailed out Nissan back in 1999, so 20 years ago. There's been a lot of sort of forwards and backwards since the disgrace of Carlos Ghosn between the French company and the Japanese company. Renault, of course, has far more shares in Nissan than Nissan does in Renault, which has meant that it's always been the dominant power in the alliance. And a full merger would probably make that even more the case. We're hearing that the plan with a full merger would be to remove the independent presidency of Nissan and have the whole company effectively governed from Paris, which perhaps some in the Japanese side of the alliance wouldn't be in favour of. But it's certainly something that's been discussed at length over the years, and something which will perhaps allow the company to move on and put the Ghosn scandal behind it if it does completely change the board and the way that the company's run by going for a full-blown merger. The idea of making an audacious bid for Fiat Chrysler isn't new either. It's something that Ghosn himself had suggested in recent years, but which was blocked by Renault's board, allegedly because of objections from the French state, which is, of course, the company's biggest shareholder. So whether the state has dropped its objections to go ahead now, we don't know. But again, it's something that's not a new idea that the Renault board have been discussing for some time, and now we're hearing they may be ready to push ahead.
And we saw the French government initially stand by Carlos Ghosn when he was arrested last year on those financial misconduct charges. But how has the government's stance on Ghosn changed over time?
Well, we haven't seen much public reaction. It's important to bear in mind that the government isn't so much protecting Carlos Ghosn as the integrity of Renault, which is a hugely significant employer in France, and they would be extremely worried by anything that would bring down Renault's share price or anything that would put it into any kind of financial jeopardy. So it's more than anything protecting those jobs here in France that concerns the government. But, as you say, Ghosn is a French citizen and the government was reluctant to make any comment about his arrest at that time. He isn't, of course, facing any criminal charges in France, and he did remain as head of Renault for some time after his arrest before he was removed by the board here in Paris. So the government is being very discreet about its comments in the future, but certainly I think we can expect that if Renault does decide to merge with Nissan, and then that would be good for the company's share price and for its overall finances, that's something that the government would be in favour of, and certainly something that wouldn't be allowed to go ahead without full-throated support from the French government, because it is such a significant shareholder.
Okay, Elena Casas in Paris, thanks so much for that update.